there, welcome to our latest episode of What's on the Horizon. I'm Lori Sharenbrock here with Chris Shooker of Digital Horizons. And we did a video probably a few weeks ago, or you could see it in our series, where we were talking about like homeowners having too many apps, and we kind of got into the idea of creating scenes. Okay. And so how do you help owners customize that, and like what's the difference between a home and a going away and a good night? What's the difference between all those?
So the ability to program scenes into Control4 is just kind of at the foundation. And the extent at which those scenes operate is really dependent on how many systems are in the Control4, under the Control4 umbrella. So for example, if we are doing lighting control, or we're doing an audio system, or there's security, the purpose of a scene is to, which maybe we should define to begin with, but a scene is generally there to act as a shortcut to multiple actions that you would otherwise do individually. So for example, I'll use our Experience Center here, which is, if you haven't been, please come in. This is a space that we've created with intention to showcase what we do in an environment that looks and feels like a home. And so one of the more common scenes that we do in a home, which we've done here, is a welcome home and a goodbye scene, which is largely based on lighting control. So when you leave your house, what do you want to do? Turn the lights off. Okay, we have a button that says goodbye. So you hit the goodbye scene and all the lights in the house turn off. You might not want all the lights to turn off. Maybe you want to keep the exterior on or something like that, but essentially goodbye turns all the lights off. We took it a step further, of course. We have motorized shades at our office, and we use them both just to kind of showcase how they work, what they sound, what they look like, all that fun stuff. But we use it for security reasons. So we've intentionally chosen blackout fabric, and so when we hit goodbye, all the shades close, and nobody can look in our windows if we're not here. If they were to try to break in, there is multiple things that would detect their intrusion, but that's another video maybe. So that is probably the most common thing that we do is a goodbye scene, and then you can imagine the inverse of that, which is a welcome home. We would turn the lights on, we would open the shades. Ours turns our music on to a certain channel at certain levels. So those are probably the most common scenes. Beyond that, we'll do scenes in things like a theater room, for example. So someone could have a watch movie scene, and that would turn the projector on, and it would turn the lights off, or it would tell the lights to go to a preset level, and maybe your linear lighting on your steps might light up, so you can actually walk to your seat. So we'll do room-specific scenes like that. But where this scene-based programming becomes really powerful is when those things happen automatically. And the prime example for that is, and how we deploy this most regularly, is when someone has Control4 with security. And if they're someone who often or regularly arms or disarms their security system, we can tell the rest of the stuff in the home to do something based on the status of the security system. So those previous goodbye, welcome home actions that I just described, instead of having it on a button, it just happens automatically when the security system is armed or disarmed. So for example, when the security system gets disarmed, let's say you're heading to Brainerd for your lake home, it can set the temperature to a certain level. It can turn the lights on. It can turn music on. So when you walk in the house, it's like you never left. It's just ready for you. But conversely, when you go to arm the system, it turns everything off. Because if no one's going to be there,
yeah. How reassuring is that?
Why do the lights need to be on? We can turn the TVs off. We can turn all the music off. We can close the shades. We can drop the temperature. And so you might otherwise have this procedure that you need to go through every time you come home and leave. but we can make those things happen automatically. We call them basically like a trigger, or it's a reference point, and we can do all sorts of things like that based on whatever stimulus you want to be the basis of this happening. And it's where having home automation becomes really home automation becomes actually home automation. It's kind of become an encompassing terms for having smart technology in your house. But if it's not doing these things automatically for you, it's not really automation, because that's the core description of what automation means, is that it happens automatically. Automation.
I love that. So, question, and thinking about like how customizable these things really are. What is the most fun or like craziest customation that you've put in a house? Like in other videos we've talked about, like I would make one that says like, let the dog out at night, because I'm an old blind person. And so it would like let me out, right? What is, or maybe one of the coolest automations you've created for a home?
Well, I have two answers to that. I would say my favorite automation that we do regularly is, and I feel like I answered this similarly last time we were kind of on this topic, I really like conditional light programming. So when we do lighting control systems, we're able to tell a keypad button, for example, that is activating a lighting scene. We're able to tell it to do something differently based on the time of day. And the prime example of that is if you have linear lighting in your kitchen or toe kicks or something like that, and during the day, like if you want them on and it's like a little overcast outside, they need to be on pretty bright in order for there to be like a benefit in having them on. But when you're hungry at 2 a.m. in the morning and you want a midnight snack, you definitely don't want them on full blast. And so we'll make buttons that say, under cabinet lights or linear lights, whatever it might be labeled as. We'll make them operate differently based on the time of day. So at 2 a.m. they turn on at 10%. Instead of at 2 p.m. they're turning on at 80% when you need the full brightness. And then I would say it's not super complicated. But one of the other automations that we do that's kind of fun, but it's not our favorite thing to do, because it never works perfectly, and whoever we do it for, it's done under a mutual understanding to that effect. But we've turned cameras into motion sensor light triggers.
Oh, sure.
So when you have lighting control and cameras, we can make them talk to each other. And normally you would say, well, I'm just going to put a motion sensor on it, right? And it senses motion, I'll turn the light on. Well, if you have lighting control, that circuit could be off because it's programmed to be off, and you can't have a motion sensor and a smart lighting system work together. Just there's 2 points of power control. It doesn't work that way. And so what we've done is on a few projects, we've told the cameras that between certain times of day, 10 p.m., 5 p.m., 5 a.m., whatever, if motion is sensed, turn these lights on. And then we'll often put in an override for that, so that if they don't want it to turn on, or they don't want it to turn off after it's turned on, whatever. The downside of doing that is it's really touchy-feely. There's a lot of customization required. Everybody they think they have their schedule figured out, and in most cases they don't. And so it's definitely doable, and there's a lot that can be done in that sense, but it's never perfect. And like I let in with, it's something that's done with a kind of a mutual understanding for who it's doing for, that, or who we're doing it for, that it either needs like continual management, or they have to understand the shortcomings that come with it.
Yeah, and if you really want to get an understanding too of how customizable or how these things work, we've mentioned it before, but it's worth mentioning again. Like, come see the Experience Center. I love touching the buttons, and I love that the buttons are customizable and they have a name on them for what they do. So it's a lot easier if you're like, oh, that sounds complicated. It's really not. They do the complicated part to make it really easy for you. And so I love touching the buttons
Yeah.
and making it do
Me
different
too.
things.
Me too.
So it is. It's kind of like, oh, it works. Like magic. It makes it feel like magic.
Yep.
We've talked about that before. So if you want to see what magic looks like in action, give them a call, make an appointment to come in and see the Experience Center and see how customizable they can make it for you. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next episode.